Hockey in the snow, iconic outdoor venues, a highlight of the new year for hockey fans. The Winter Classic has been a tradition in the NHL since 2008. The annual hockey game is part of the NHL's outdoor series, with the Heritage Classic and Stadium Series creating a trio of games which turn the clock back on hockey. This year the Chicago Blackhawks and the St. Louis Blues will face off against each other on New Year's Eve for this season's Winter Classic game. But which Winter Classic games are considered the best, the most memorable and the most iconic of all time? Hello everybody, welcome back to my channel. I'm Victoria and I talk all things hockey from Scotland. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already and also like this video for more content like this. And let's talk about the top 5 NHL Winter Classic games ever. There have been a lot of good ones over the years, but in my opinion, these are the top 5 best Winter Classic games ever to have been hosted. Since we are nearing this year's Winter Classic with Chicago and St. Louis, I thought this would be a fun video to do. It's also a little bit festive for over the holiday period. I have on my Leafs Christmas jumper, fully in the festive spirit. I really like Winter Classic games. I'm very into old school hockey. It really fascinates me. I love a bit of hockey history, and so I absolutely adore games like the Winter Classic and the Heritage Classic. They are definitely highlights of the NHL season for me. Leave me a comment down below, what do you think are the best Winter Classic games of all time? And let's jump into my top 5. In 5th place is the 2011 Winter Classic, hosted at Heinz Field between the Washington Capitals and the Pittsburgh Penguins. Washington won this game 3-1 and it really was one of the most highly anticipated matchups in Winter Classic history. It pitted rival teams against each other and it also saw two of the league's biggest stars at the time, Sidney Crosby and Alex Ovechkin, going up against each other. There was a lot of hype for this game. That's actually why it's in at number 5 in my opinion, because the anticipation for this game was huge. The HBO 24/7 series dedicated to the Winter Classic really increased the excitement for this matchup. People were just so excited to see the likes of Ovechkin and Crosby go against each other. Basically the same hype that exists around prime Connor McDavid versus prime Austin Matthews. However, this game is in at number 5 because the actual game itself didn't really live up to expectations. As I say, it made the 5th spot because of the anticipation, because the build-up seemed really fun, but the actual game itself was a little bit of a letdown. There was rain concerns, weather issues. There was also a significant Sidney Crosby injury in this game which kept him out for the rest of the season, and the weather conditions made it quite a slow-paced game in comparison to other Winter Classic matchups. It didn't have all the atmospheric factors that play into a really good Winter Classic. It's a shame. It seemed like it had the potential to be really good, but external factors on the day seemed to really let it down. So this one sneaked into number 5 spot because of the anticipation, the build-up and the excitement based around a Pittsburgh versus Washington and Ovechkin versus Crosby rivalry. In 4th place we have the 2012 Winter Classic, which was far better than the 2011 one. It was at Citizens Bank Park and it saw the New York Rangers take on the Philadelphia Flyers, with the Rangers coming out with a 3-2 win. This one grabs 4th place because it was really a great game of hockey. Philly actually got ahead by 2 in this game, but the Rangers made a massive comeback. The Flyers were actually given a penalty shot with less than 20 seconds remaining in the game. That is hockey at its peak. A team is 1 goal down and they get a penalty shot with 20 seconds left. That is prime excitement hockey right there. However, the Flyers did not score on that penalty shot, with none other than Henrik Lundqvist making the save. The game itself was thoroughly entertaining and is arguably one of the most entertaining hockey games itself to ever take place as a Winter Classic. However, it didn't get into the top 3 because it didn't have the same wintry conditions and the same atmosphere as some of these other ones do higher up the rankings. The game was actually delayed at one point due to sun glare, which just kind of tells you everything. It was not a snowy day. It didn't have that Winter Classic feel that often fans are looking for. And in addition to that, obviously Citizens Bank Park, which is the Philadelphia Phillies home ballpark, it was quite new at the time still. It was less than a decade old. It didn't have that same historic richness of a venue that some other ones do. So it definitely didn't have that old time, really wintry feel that some other Winter Classics do, but the game itself thoroughly entertaining. Obviously the Rangers and the Phillies is a great matchup, so it had to claim 4th spot for this. Now into the top 3. In my opinion, these are the 3 best Winter Classic games of all time. The 2009 Winter Classic, held at Wrigley Field between the Detroit Red Wings and the Chicago Blackhawks. The Red Wings won this one 6-4. This was the second year of the Winter Classic. The NHL decided to host it in a ballpark this time. Obviously it was a football stadium first time around. So for their second year they decided to host it in a ballpark, and not just any ballpark, Wrigley Field, which is one of the most iconic venues, not just in baseball but in sport as a whole. So this one of course immediately gets extra points just for the venue alone. This game had a lot of, I guess, cheesier effects but that were really fun. They sang Take Me Out to the Ball Game during this game. The Red Wings had on those really cool jerseys with the massive D letter on the front, which I love. It was also a really high scoring game, of course. I believe this is still the record for the number of goals scored in a Winter Classic game. I don't think any other game has got above 10. Chicago actually led this game 3-1 after the first, but Detroit dominated for the rest of the game. This wasn't one of the coldest games and there wasn't any snow, but it was still a really cool event. Wrigley Field is of course amazing, and I will always love an original 6 matchup, so the Red Wings versus the Blackhawks is obviously absolutely iconic. Seemed like something that would have been really cool to be at, so that's why it's made my top 3. Now my top 2, it took me a while to decide which one was going to be 1 and which one was going to be 2, because I think both are equally as cool, to be honest. I think these are definitely the 2 best in my opinion anyway. So these 2 are pretty much tied, but I had to pick a 1 and 2, and so in second place is the 2014 Winter Classic held at Michigan Stadium between the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Detroit Red Wings. The Leafs won this one in a shootout in a very tense and exciting hockey game. 2 historic teams, so much history. That is what the Winter Classic is all about. Held at a great venue. Michigan Stadium is a great place to hold a Winter Classic game in my opinion. 491 fans in attendance. Not the highest attended game ever, mind you, but still, that's a lot of people. It was freezing cold, it was snowing, and it looked exactly like a Winter Classic game should. It was so cold in fact that the ball inside the ref's whistle froze. It was the perfect atmosphere for a Winter Classic game, and the photos from this game go so hard. They are some of my favourite hockey pictures of all time. I thought the jerseys were amazing in this game. I actually own a 2014 Winter Classic jersey. It has Joffrey Lepoule 19 on the back. He of course scored in this game. It's one of my favourite jerseys that I own. I absolutely love it. One of the best Leafs jerseys ever. Atmosphere was perfect, the jerseys were on point, and the game itself was also very entertaining. Both teams played really well in this game, hence why they managed to force it to overtime and then to a shootout. The Leafs did take the win of course in the shootout, but overall a great game between the 2 teams. I just think this is as perfect a Winter Classic game as you're ever going to get, and so you might wonder, well, why is it not in number 1? And that's because number 1 is the inaugural 2008 Winter Classic game at Ralph Wilson Stadium between the Pittsburgh Penguins and the Buffalo Sabres. The Penguins took this game 2-1 once again in a shootout. This is honestly tied with the 2014 Winter Classic, but because it was the first ever one, it has to get top spot. For it being the first year, they really did an amazing job. You know, sometimes the first time you embark on a new endeavour like this, there are some issues, but this game was really good. So the fact they managed to get it so really well done first time around means it had to get top spot. Over 71,000 fans in attendance, everyone's so excited for this new outdoor game that the NHL had introduced. Of course at this point there was the Heritage Classic games, which are held exclusively in Canada, and of course the Winter Classic is always held in the US, so it balanced out the NHL geographical areas between the 2 countries. There was a lot of anticipation for this. It was snowing and the Penguins were wearing those incredible blue jerseys, which in my opinion are the best Penguins jerseys ever. Not only did this game go to a shootout, but Sidney Crosby scored, which of course makes it even more iconic because it's Sidney Crosby. This game just had everything. It had the hype, it had the atmosphere, the venue was really cool, the jerseys were great, the game was really entertaining, and it was so well matched up that the game went all the way to a shootout. Just absolutely incredible, and I feel like if you were to ask a lot of NHL players what game they would like to play in, it of course would be the 2008 Winter Classic game. And And if you were to ask a lot of hockey fans what game they wish they could have been in attendance for, I would imagine a lot of them would also pick this game. Although I would pick the 2014 Winter Classic, of course. So those are my top 5 NHL Winter Classic games of all time. Leave me a comment down below, what do you think are the best Winter Classics ever to have taken place? I know these are all slightly older games, and of course there have been some good Winter Classics in recent years. I just personally think that the fact that there's 3 different outdoor games now can sometimes dilute it a little bit. I think having the Heritage Classic and the Winter Classic is that perfect balance because you've got one that's US based and one that's Canada based. I'm not 100% sure that the NHL needs the Stadium Series. I think there would be more hype for the outdoor games if there were less of them. It makes them more special, more unique, and more of a highlight of the season. So I think when you put too many of them on, it can really dilute the excitement that fans have for those games. So let me know in the comments, do you think that there's been better Winter Classics since 2014? In my opinion, all of the best Winter Classics took place when there was only the Heritage Classic and the Winter Classic going on. Of course, the 2022 Winter Classic is also iconic because that's the coldest Winter Classic game that's ever taken place. But I feel like it still didn't come close to the actual games that were mentioned in this top 5. But let me know your thoughts down below. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. And thank you so much for watching, and I'll be back soon with more hockey chats from across the pond in Scotland. Bye guys.